So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this panel on challenges and benefits of sustainable aquaculture organized by EIT Food. My name is Mercedes Groba. I'm the Innovation Program Manager at EIT Food, where I lead the Sustainable Aquaculture area. It's both an honor and a pleasure to be here today and share this panel with four extraordinary experts in their field. I'd like to start by welcoming our panelists. Today we have with us Paul Sindilariu, who is the co-founder of Tuna in Germany. Paul holds a diploma in aquaculture engineering, specialized in recirculating aquaculture systems, a PhD in aquaculture from Humboldt University, and an MBA from the University of Bern and Rochester. Paul spent his entire career in the aquaculture industry. First, he started as engineer, building state-of-art recirculated aquaculture systems, mainly for salmon industry. And during the last 10 years, he took over the role of a fish farmer, running one of the biggest aquaculture facilities in Switzerland. The next speaker we have is Hanne Martens, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Aqua Farm Group with headquarters in Norway. Hanne has only recently joined the aquaculture sector and has a background in science and business management. At the end of 2019, Aqua Pharma Group became jointly owned by two innovative parent companies, Slowbay and Aquatic. It was part of that joint venture creation that Hanne joined the sector with plenty of drive and ambition to take the next step in sustainable disease management in aquaculture. Now, I would like to introduce Marco Chryssolouris, who is the CEO at Susea based in the Netherlands. Mark holds a diploma in mechanical engineering from the National Technical University of Athens. He has been focusing on aquaculture since 2016. His focus is mostly on reducing waste and improving safety. Mark's vision is that this will be achieved through improvements in processing without the use of preservatives and improved modeling and monitoring throughout the supply chain. And from Denmark, we have Nikki Alexey, who is working at the Food Quality Perception and Society Research Group of the Food Department at Aarhus University in Denmark. Nikki has worked in sensory and consumer research of seafood and aquaculture products, in specific using sensory evaluation to validate novel prediction tools and processing technologies for their potential to extend the shelf life while retaining the quality of aquaculture products. Moreover, she's using consumer research to explore consumption habits, barriers, drivers, wishes, and explore the consumer acceptance of novel aquaculture products to ensure target innovation and value creation within the aquaculture field. So in the next 40 minutes, but not 40 minutes, 15 minutes, we will discuss some of the benefits and challenges facing sustainable aquaculture today. Today, we know that aquaculture has many economic, social, and environmental benefits. Approximately 3 billion people around the world still rely on seafood as a key source of daily proteins and nutrition. However, the seafood supply in Europe is insufficient, and we are currently relying on import from many other countries. By 2030, 2/3 of the global seafood requirements could come from aquaculture. To keep up with the growing seafood demand and to stop the overexploitation of wild fish, aquaculture has expanded and is now the fastest growing food sector worldwide. In fact, it accounts for more than 50% of all seafood we consume. Yet we also know that there is another part of the story, as aquaculture faces multiple challenges, including from marine biodiversity loss, to water pollution and unsustainable fish feed. At EIT Food, we have identified sustainable aquaculture as one of our key focus areas. By working on these focus areas through innovation, education, business creation, and communication, we aim to contribute to the European Green Deal in two main ways. One, by aligning with the European farm-to-fork strategy, and second, by achieving several of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. This includes conserving and using oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development, ending poverty, overcoming inequality, and addressing climate change. Now, let's open our discussion and learn more from our experts. Let's begin with a simple question. Can aquaculture sustainably feed the world? Paul, would you like to start?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Mercedes, very much for this very nice introduction. And yes, I would say aquaculture can be an essential part of the sustainable development to sustainably feed the world, but I don't think it's the only part. It can only bring a contribution, and this contribution is by providing high-quality proteins to a growing population worldwide. But even more important, it's not only the protein, it's especially the essential fatty acids that are very important for brain development. And as we all know, brain is the resource of the future. And aquaculture can as well bring a contribution to sustainability. Sustainability in the sense of feeding the fish on to lower trophic levels, so to really improve the high protein quality for the human consumption and feeding on a lower trophic levels, and for instance, wild fishing even can do.
Thank you, Paul. Hanne, what do you think about the role of aquaculture?
Ką jūs manote apie akvakultūros vaidmenį? Visiškai sutinku su tuo, ką sakė Paula.
Play a role in sustainable protein production. There's no other choice. We're 8 billion people, and so it's this mix of plant-based, seafood, meat-based. There's just no other way. And then I just want to make a point that aquaculture is such a diverse industry with very different segments. So we have to be very careful to respect that every segment has different maturity and different challenges. So I will now just make a comment on salmon, in which our company has most experience. Salmon farming has already gone through great lengths in changing practices in a sustainable way. But does this mean that there is no challenges anymore? No, there are still challenges, and especially in this increasing demand for these healthy proteins for salmon. The industry in Europe and in the world actually needs to grow. We need to have more farms, and then the risk is, of course, more farms, more fish, and then it's nature. There will be a higher risk for disease spreading amongst these fish. Now, and that's where companies like Pharma, but many others in the industry have such an important role to play. This is where science and innovation, collaboration comes in, and where we have to, it's our duty, we have to come with new or improved methods to really sustainably prevent disease from happening, and if it happens, then to treat it responsibly. And that's where I think also the project for which we have received the EIT Food recognition and funding comes in. I do really think that by collaboration and innovation, we will be able to sustainably scale the aquaculture segment.
Thank you, Hanne. And Mark, would you like to share with us your views?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely, aquaculture can sustainably feed the world. The question is which policies we're gonna support and how long it will take until this happens. Because at the moment, we know that the global fish stocks that fisheries rely on are dwindling. And so really the only game in town is aquaculture right now. So from our side, we see that certain approaches that are kind of a blanket approach to big problems in aquaculture is very helpful. So for instance, the project that EIT Food has supported us with, Susea, in which we are collaborating with Aarhus University, we feel it's very important because we're trying to reduce seafood waste, which will affect all sectors of aquaculture on the processing side. And by just saving a little bit of seafood from each part of the value chain and in different species, we can really impact the sustainability and the ability of aquaculture to provide large volumes of protein and nutrition all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And Nikki, what is your perspective?
I agree more with the previous speakers, but also about the whole innovation, because yes, aquaculture can feed the world, but we have to support it. We have to innovate as it expands. And it, in a way, it has to. I also see it like this because any increase in seafood consumption, the last 30 years have mainly come from aquaculture. So we have depleting fisheries, and from the 90s, we have like an increase of 15% in the production of seafood. And in the same time, we have an increase of 500% in aquaculture production. So this is also expected to continue like this. But as Mark said before, we have to think of the whole farm to fork approach, like the sea farm to our consumer. And there are issues, of course, in production, but there is also issues in processing, issues in transportation. So we need to, for example, we have like 35% of our production is lost. It's becoming waste, and that's a huge amount of the production. And this is in its essence unsustainable. So by our project that has been funded by EIT Food, Susea, we are working in this aspect. We are trying to extend the shelf life of fish fillets, fresh fish fillets, and also in the way that it enhances the safety, but also it doesn't affect what the consumers know, what they prefer, the appearance, the sensory profile. And it's also natural, which is very important nowadays. People don't want additives, they don't want something else in their food. So we are trying to respect their wishes and still try to have a positive contribution. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for sharing your views with us. Now, Paul, could you tell us, can the piece of research and innovation for sustainable production practices match the growing demand for production? Paul, sorry, you are on mute.
Yes. From my opinion, I don't think that the pace of research and innovation is the issue. I think it's rather the bottleneck is how can we translate this very advanced research innovation into real practice, into the aquaculture industry. And I think this translation is rather the limiting factor, which is slow. We see a very slow implementation of new innovative and sustainable practice. And from my perspective, this has two reasons. I think the legal and administrative barriers are kind of blocking the very fast development. We see that research is doing very good. There are coming a lot of new ideas out of research institutes, out of projects like the EIT Food project. But then the challenge is really to translate and implement these projects into real aquaculture production, let's say it this way. And I see as well that there's a communication gap between research and the aquaculture industry. Often new research new research solutions are seen too far from the scientific point of view, and they kind of tend to forget the real farm environment. And this is how I see it, the limiting factor in bringing innovation into real practice, bringing innovation into aquaculture production. And there's where I have the feeling we are kind of stuck in the process. The ideas are there, the solutions are half there, but we are lacking the implementation in the real farming environment. And this is where this funding instrument like EIT Food comes into place, where we can start implementing research into real industry, into real aquaculture like we try to do with our tuna aquaculture project, bringing tuna really into the aquaculture. Until now, we have seen that tuna has been, the reproduction of tuna has been developed on a scientific level, but it's lacking, again, the translation, the transformation into an industrial application.
Thank you, Paul. That was very informative. And now, Hanne, could you please explain what will we feed the seafood we grow with? Is the future in land or ocean-based feed?
Yeah, I can be very short on this because it's not really my expertise, but listening to experts and also to the veterinarians in our team, I think it is, again, a mix. There will be a mix of land-based and harvested production. So I think, you know, the insects, that trend is really interesting. The tree-based fermentation from yeast, you know, there's options. Soya very likely will continue to be phased out, and that's, you know, that's probably the best. Now, again, speaking for salmon, salmon has already been, let's say, well adapted to the mix of vegetable meal and fish meal. A big change there would probably not be the best decision. However, there are big opportunities to also change here to more sustainable aquaculture products. You know, the short traveled, produced closer to market. There's always ways to do better, and companies are looking at this. So I think, yeah, balanced a mix is the answer for the moment.
Thank you, Hanne. Now let's move on to another question. Mark, could you please tell us who has the role of driving change and positive development in this sector? The consumer, the industry, or the governments?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite obvious that all of the stakeholders have a big role to play. Starting with the consumer, there needs to be a lot of education, and there's personal responsibility for the consumer to do this. EIT Food has various educational initiatives. Of course, there's this great initiative, the Digital Sea Conference. But even on the, you know, nitty-gritty everyday details that we do, consumers need to understand what are the healthy choices, what are the benefits and drawbacks in terms of sustainability of each food, and make responsible choices, not just go with the various fads that they might read about in a magazine or social media. In terms of the governments, of course, they have a huge role to play. Obviously, they need to put in more investment into innovation, as it is already being done with also the new Horizon Europe framework. But of course, at some point, we need to say that, you know, the governments cannot really just pick the innovation winners. There needs to be some tangible market result for the innovation to start entering at some point its own financial sustainability process, which is, again, a great thing that we have this EIT funding, because this way we can really take it up to the place where we can actually start generating cash on our own. Finally, in terms of the industry, we see a lot of times that, of course, there is the enthusiasm to innovate and drive new great things, but oftentimes when you start with a really innovative approach, either some kind of a digitization of the production, processing, or feeds, we see that the actual benefits in the short run are very small. And there the industry needs to take a much, much longer view, because in 10, 20 years, things are going to be different, scale is going to be higher, and these small margins today are going to matter in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Very interesting. Oof, we don't have more time. Is that right?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Your question was very interesting to our audience, because we also were struggling with the questions like, who can lead all these great changes? Thank you very much for your valuable discussion, Mercedes.
Thank you. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you.